So now we move on to the Whakahou panel, Restoring Our Natural Environment Beyond 2024, Lessons Learnt. This will be facilitated by Bruce Clarkson, who was a co-founder, of course, and director of Bioheritage. The panellists are, and please do come up onto the stage, John Reid, Maria Bargh, Erina Watene, and Danielle Shanahan. So the question is, and you can add more on the app, what lessons have been learned in efforts to restore New Zealand's natural environment that will serve us well post-2024? Nau mai whakapiri mai, and we can all welcome them to the stage for our Whakahou panel of about 20 minutes.
Kia ora koutou, ko Bruce Clarkson na hau, tōku maunga ko Taranaki, tōku awa ko Whanganui, ko Ngāti Pākehā te iwi, kei kiri roa e noho ana I nai anei. You'll hear more from me later today. I'm keeping it brief because I want to give the showcase to what we've just heard, the richness and the depth of restoration, where communities are not just being empowered, actually they are taking power even more. So I can't help but reflect back to the year 1999 when I was involved in setting up the Foundation for Research, Science and Technology plans for research in New Zealand. And I had a battle with an unnamed CEO of a Crown Research Institute on the term restoration. It's just mainstream now. I can't help but reflect on this. The topic for today is restoration. And we've got an amazing panel here. And just as a reminder, what are the lessons that have been learned in efforts to restore New Zealand's natural environment, which will serve us well post-24, reflecting on what we've just heard. And I'm going to give each of the panelists an opportunity to answer that question. I'm going to start with Shaun on the end there. Sorry, Shaun, I put you on the hot street straight away.
Kia ora. Oh, kia ora koutou. Ko te mea tuatahi. Ai ke te pirangi au ki te mihi ki a koutou I tēnei wā ai ko Shaun Ogilvie. Ahau, ko Shaun Ogilvie ahau, no Aotearoa me Ngāti Awa ahau. I've got a difficult job here because I'm actually supposed to be editor, so I couldn't possibly live up to that, but yeah, last minute replacement. So yeah, so kia ora koutou. I think I've been sitting here over the last 2 days, and I've got to say I've just been really fully impressed. There's so many things going on, and to come up here and kind of, you know, give advice on what's good in terms of restoration is quite a big trick. But when I was thinking about it just before, I think a kupu Māori kind of came to mind for me, and that's rangatira. And if you kind of split that word up, ranga or rāranga or ranga is to like weaving together strands, and tira is people, groups of people. So I've seen over these last couple of days the conceptualization of rangatira or rangatiratanga, weaving together people. And for me, we kind of seen over the last few days, the strains have been really amazing. Like we've kind of got, I guess, what needs to be included in the strains and what we've learnt within the biological heritage over this time, bringing the strains together. Clearly, kaitiaki are a really important strain. Mana whenua hapu, holders of that intergenerational knowledge, really important. And then, of course, communities, the wider communities and the collectives, weaving them together. And then alongside that, I think, and we've seen some really great examples, I was thinking about the AI and the tuna and that, also bringing together the kind of developers of new knowledge and new tools and the key role that they play, pulling on those things together. And then kind of, I think we saw some good talks yesterday around funders, sponsors, philanthropists, investors, and bringing in that kind of financial support in behind it. And then, of course, policymakers, Maria, I'm jumping in there on what you've just talked about, bringing them all together, and governance experts, legal experts, those sorts of things. So really that concept of rangatiratanga was the thing that really kind of stood out to me. And I suppose bringing all that together, a quote that was said earlier on, if the environment if te taiao is in good stead, then we as humans are in good stead. So that kind of links it all together. So I suppose just to bring it together in a nutshell, that was kind of how I've just been so fully impressed, and I think that's the key thing that I've gained out of these last few days, and also being involved in the biological heritage over the last many years since it's been coming into existence. That's what's I think has been done really, really well in terms of aiding restoration of our taonga species and our taonga environment. So, kia ora.
Yes, Danielle. Well, everybody knows Danielle already. She's spoken before. We all know who she is. Go for it, Danielle.
A little bit more about me though. Ko Pukeatua te maunga e runei, taku ngākau, and you can see Pukeatua through the windows out there. I grew up in Whanganui-a-Tara, so I'm local and work at Zealandia now, which makes me very lucky. Right now, I look across my team at Zealandia and I see a lot of worry. I'm not sure the trifecta in charge of our country right now has any idea about the depth and breadth of work that is happening across Aotearoa, New Zealand for te taiao right now. So Kylie showed, just a smattering of the collectives on her map. Aroha showed the map of Māori-led restoration initiatives. This is work that is going deep, very, very deep. In fact, it's going deep into the places that I think if you were doing a classic Western conservation prioritisation initiative, we'd be marking those places as the most degraded places where we are putting our effort. I get my hope from Zealandia right now. Like I look across Wellington, as I say, I grew up in Whanganui-a-Tara. When I was 7, I reckon I had about 20 encounters with tui. And my niece right now has probably had 3,000 in her lifespan. So I think this hui has really highlighted that our direction of travel needs to focus on that hope and that optimism, and that we need to look to these examples of people going deep and going local to really ensure that we can continue on a positive trajectory.
Kia ora. John Reid of Eco Index fame also needs no introduction.
Kia ora koutou, hei uri hau no Ngāti Piki o mei tainui. So I'm someone who sits behind a keyboard rather than getting their hands dirty. So I'm a little bit humbled by listening to the kōrero this morning. One theme that kept popping through for me was, particularly from all the community groups, was the need for resourcing, the need to resource leadership, the need to, and not even asking for much, oftentimes, just enough to keep things going. And just within Eco Index, crunching some of the numbers, certainly back of the envelope type stuff, but we're getting more detail now as we know that to protect, restore, protect, our taonga, our biodiversity, it's going to cost many hundreds of billions of dollars to do that. And it's even a large percentage, a reasonable percentage of New Zealand's GDP, 2-3%. And this is the way governments think about costs. And when we think about that cost, we're thinking, where does that weigh up against paying for the health system or paying for, or education systems or other things, or tax cuts. Yeah. Thanks, Maria. Yeah. So, and those are the sort of decisions that need to be made. How much do we value this? How do we channel resources into this area? And that's where I was raising some of the issues yesterday around how we might be able to do that through other mechanisms as well, and particularly through sort of initiatives like Merino NZ has underway, and also what's happening across the country. But overall, we're seeing this huge initiative between farmer catchment groups and ecosystem restoration groups and iwi hapu-led initiatives and broader community conservation efforts, and these together are creating a sort of, I suppose, a sense of critical mass or momentum. But I would add to that, we need to be thinking about that broader strategic planning approach and coordination between all, because what we do at one end of the catchment affects every other element. So that's what I would be thinking of too, is the broader catchment, and those within government. I don't see political leadership doing it, but I see it coming from grassroots on the way up. But I think our ministries and so forth can play a role in supporting that alongside regional councils.
Kia ora, thank you, John. Over to you, Maria.
Okay.
No introduction needed here?
No, just introduce myself. I think, yeah, I mean, it's been mentioned before, one of the things that we kept seeing was expressions of rangatiratanga. And I think from a kind of political background, it seems important to me to keep remembering that rangatiratanga continues and is flourishing. Yes, it's really hard, but time and time again we see whānau hapu iwi hapori Māori stepping up, expressing that rangatiratanga in the protection of our communities, not just Māori communities, but non-Māori as well, and the environment. And I think that's what's really inspiring, whether it's placing rāhui in different places to protect kauri, to protect kaimoana or different species, or for other reasons, placing those temporary restrictions. Those sorts of mechanisms are this expression of rangatiratanga, and those, our Māori political organisations continue. In our work, Matt Scobie was looking at the resourcing of rangatiratanga, how at a more fundamental level, and we'll be familiar probably with the diagram with the different spheres of political authority, the rangatiratanga sphere and the kāwanatanga sphere, and the little bit in the middle where they overlap. Well, Matt's work was looking at, actually, if this is how the political authority should be divvied up, what about divvying up the resourcing at a fundamental level like that, so that we aren't waiting for little drip feeds of funding, but actually fundamentally, as part of our Te Tiriti blueprint, have this shared economic authority as well. And we know that Māori land trusts and incorporations and some rūnanga do have pūtea from various sources, from various sometimes harms of the past that have been partially redressed, but that needs to also be at a fundamental level. But I think those inspiring stories of where rangatiratanga is just being expressed, like writing our own permits, but we also see it in many other places. That's the inspirational part.
Now, being the chair, I get my chance to give you some of my views, and I just wanted to indicate to you that I was great to hear from you, Maria, and know what your background is in political science. I've recently crossed over to the dark side. So I'm now the Deputy Chair of the Waikato Regional Council. And why did I do that? I just wanted to use that action to help mobilise all of you, because actually what we have to do from today on is mobilise and redouble our efforts, not to react to the very difficult situation we are by going back into our shell. Please no, mobilise, redouble our efforts. And the things that I've learnt in the projects that I've been involved in, I'll just give you a quick example. So I've been working in Kirikiriroa, Hamilton for 20 years, and that my oldest project now will be having its 20th anniversary on Arbor Day of this year. And the main things that I've learnt from this process are actually about the political system, because you can't stand back and not be part of it. And the most important thing is that you do appear at the long-term plan submission process, all of you, wherever you live in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and you advocate based on the evidence you've all assembled here and presented to us over the last few days. Because you know what? The councillors have never seen this stuff. They don't know much about it, and you have to activate their action and convince them that actually the funding that is needed, and that is really what it's about, isn't it? It's about the funding and the support for hapu, iwi and the community to undertake the actions. So I just would like, as my contribution today, to recommend to you that you put as much effort into understanding the political ecosystem as the natural ecosystem you're trying to restore, because that is the source, that is the place where you can achieve some of the funding and some of the collective action that you need to make a successful job of restoring Aotearoa's wonderful environment. I'm going to close it off there. I wanted to thank the panel for their comments at this stage, but to go back also and thank once again all of those wonderful presenters that we've heard from today in this session, and all of the richness and the depth in their stories, and to use that as the thing that inspires us to go on with our good work. Thank you very much.
Kia ora koutou katoa. You go. So what we can do as well is we've got the app where you may have been asking questions, and all of our delegates can reply directly as well, and that's a really good opportunity. But what we can also do is utilise the restoration theme to restore our puku and to have something to eat right now. So what we're going to do is come back at 10:30, sharp. So sharp, or else you're going to see what a small woman can do to bring you back into this room. Nō reira, tuatahi nei ka huri ki tētahi o korua, ki te whakapai i te kai e hora atu nei, tēnā korua kei a korua te tikanga. Āmene, hei te haurua i te tekau. We'll see you back 10:30. Kia ora tātou.